Hey, this is Jonathan Green of Streamline Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. I'm the team leader here in my background. This is our brokerage. This is our team on market, and this is our real estate investment arm, Zen in the Art of Real Estate Investing. The thing that all of these have in common is that they involve a standard real estate contract. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share my screen. Apologize for the hair issues. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go through the entire New Jersey contract of sale with you and tell you what you need to look for and what is going to be important. Here we go. Are you ready? Let's go. We want the desktop. There we go. Going to make this bigger for you guys. This should be good. And here we go. That's actually a little too big, to be honest. So this is your standard contract. The first page has you indicating, again, as agents, we fill this out. We actually have a team success manager on my team who the agents fill out a one sheet. They send it to her and she fills out the contract and sends it out to you for signing. This makes our process streamlined and makes it able for you to understand what you're getting into. I'm making this video because we always are trying to explain the contract in advance, but I want to have this available so it can be sent to other agents who need to know when they're brand new, and to you, buyers, investors, sellers, so you know what the contract looks like, because it is long. It is 14 pages, including the wire fraud. A lot of it is irrelevant, but I'm going to hit the high points on you so you know what to look for. So your first page, we actually fill this out. So we're usually marking that we represent the buyer, not the seller. Again, I'm not going to read the entire document to you. I'm just going to hit the highlights. So normally this is check the buyer, not the seller. We would check both the seller and the buyer if both sides are represented by eXp agents. It doesn't matter if we're on the same team. If we're involved in the same brokerage, it counts as dual agency and it's both the seller and the buyer. Normally when we're writing an offer, we're going to be clicking this for you, the buyer, not the seller, because that's who we represent. You, the buyer, are going to sign here. If you have more people on the transaction, they will sign right here. Eventually, it will get sent to the seller, who would sign here and here. The seller's agent would sign here to confirm, and me in this example, or someone on my team, or your real estate agent if you're not working with your team, will sign here and print who it's prepared by at the bottom. That's page one, normally coming out from a buyer, signatures. Page two gives you an overview of all the stuff that's in there. It's overwhelming. Generally, again, I'm just hitting the highlights for you. This is going to be buyer, your names here separately, your current address, where you're living right now, agrees to purchase from. This is where the seller's information goes. And this is the seller's address, not necessarily the address of the house. It's where the sellers are living. A lot of people own investment properties, so they live at a different address. We double check this to make sure it's all correct, so we have a fully formed contract that is complete with no errors. Here's where the property address goes. If you're buying or making an offer on 123 Main Street, it will go right here. Tax map of, this is the city, say Montclair or Bloomfield, county, Essex or Bergen or Morris. The block and lot number is what we can pull off of the tax records. And then this, we usually put nothing here. This is the very, very important point for you here. Sorry, this, yeah, that worked perfectly. This is where all the money goes. So your total purchase price is going to go here in the first line. So say you're bidding $400,000. Your total purchase price here is going to say 400 on this line. Your initial deposit is a little bit different these days. An initial deposit is your first earnest money that goes. Normally in the old days, it was actually given as a check with the offer, and then brokerages would handle the money. We don't do that anymore. So your initial deposit would go direct to a seller or buyer's attorney, however it's indicated in the contract. I'm just going to tell you, most of the time, these initial deposits don't even go out. They go out with your additional deposit, which normally goes 10 days after the close of attorney review, which also means that you've closed or are during the inspection window. So if you have $400,000, say you're putting 10% down, which is $40,000, we usually recommend having half of that up front to be competitive. So you may have 5,000 here and then 15,000, which would equal 20,000, which is half of your 10% deposit of 40,000. So you would have 400,000, 5,000, 15,000, which means 20,000 would be held by the seller's attorney's trust account or your buyer's attorney's trust account prior to the close. You will not lose that money unless you basically just walk away for no reason and you can't document. If you're in attorney review, you can walk away. If you have an inspection issue that you and the seller cannot agree on, you will be able to cancel the contract. So a lot of people get in a panic. Your money's not going to get stolen. It's very rare that deposits are taken. And basically, you would have to be real close to the end and walk away. Prior to that, attorneys usually negotiate ways out of it if need be. Again, 400,000 is your purchase price. You're putting 10% down, so you have 5 and 15 to equal 20, which means you'll be bringing 20 to closing, which will go on the last line. So that's 40,000 total deposit, which means 360,000 is your mortgage, and that will go here. So again, 400,000, 5,000, 15,000, 360,000, 20,000, which is your last 20,000 that you bring to closing. You'll get electronically signed initials to mark here and here. Again, remember, since this is recorded, if I'm going too fast, just dial it back 20 seconds or 30 seconds or a minute and go over these features again. Page 3, manner of payment, initial deposit to be paid by buyer. That's you in this context. 2, and we're usually going to put in here other buyer's attorney's trust account. The truth is, like I said, that's almost never goes out these days, on or before countersigned contract, which means technically that first 5,000 would be due and sent after the seller signs the contract with you. That is best practices and how it would be done written through the contract. Your additional deposit, which is done here on or before 10 days after the close of attorney review, is our standard. That's when that 15,000 would go. So basically you'd have 5 and 15 and 20,000 would be on deposit in what they call escrow, held by one of the attorneys in a trust account while everything is pending. Escrow, that's where it's held, and the non-interest bearing trust account it's usually the seller's attorney. So you can mark both. The seller's attorney holds it. They don't have access to it. They can't give it to the seller because they feel like it. It's in an escrow trust account, which is the most secure type of attorney account there is. So if you, buyer, are getting a mortgage, this is really important. We figure all this stuff out here about the days. Obviously, you can pause this and read right through, and we can send you a blank contract, which we like to do prior to anything. This will be your principal amount from our example. That was 360,000 because you were doing 400,000 purchase price with a 10% conventional loan. So you would do type of mortgage, conventional, term of mortgage, 30 years is common based on a 30-year payment schedule. Of course, if you're doing VA or FHA, VA is 0% down. FHA is usually 3.5% down. Section 203K is a renovation loan, which involves your FHA intake and then also renovation budget. And then your conventional loan is the standard. If it's usually over the 3.5%, you're usually going to be in a conventional loan situation. Your mortgage commitment in a fast pace is going to be about 20 days from contract signing. In just regular times, you're going to be at 30 days and then 45 days to close. But right now, people are running real hot. So sometimes we're putting this in as 20 days from contract signing. Then you scroll down to balance of purchase price, which is your closing date, which you'll bring that last $20,000. That would be 30 days out if you want a 30-day quick close, or 45 days out to be safe. Again, as buyers, you're always looking to have your agent, our agents, ask the seller through their listing agent, what is the seller's preferred closing date? because that makes us make sure that we're matching the seller's needs and making a more competitive offer than other buyers who may be matching their own needs, but may not work for the seller, who may want to close quick or close late. These, again, you can read. If I skip over things, it means that it very rarely comes up. You're free, again, to just reach out to me. You can email me. You can do it through any of these social networks that you find this on, and we will get you a blank copy of the contract. But this is here to help you. You can even have the blank contract open for you while you do this. I'm going to skip over these. If anything is specifically included in the sale, it would go in this section 6. And if things are excluded, like if the sellers are taking a washer and dryer, that will come here. If nothing is mentioned, we do make mention of the MLS sheet. One note, we also have everybody, not everybody does this, we have our buyers and sellers sign off on the MLS listing so that it's very clear that that's what we're agreeing to, in case somebody says later, hey, I'd like to keep the washer and dryer, but if it's not indicated on the MLS and we signed off on it and it's not here in the contract, they're not keeping the washer and dryer, unless you're really nice. Dates and time for performance. Again, remember, I'm going to skip over this. Certificate of occupancy and zoning compliance. Very important for investors, but important for everybody. In a regular sale, a seller is responsible for getting a certificate of occupancy, which it makes it able to transfer the property to another. We always actually put $1,000 in here. This means seller shall obtain it at seller's expense and provide to buyer the actual certificate of occupancy and or repairs. We want them to be able to close it. We put, if this expense exceeds $1,000 to seller, then seller may terminate this contract and refund to buyer all deposit monies. This is just here as a placeholder. If for some reason there was an issue with certificate of occupancy, remember, the seller can't transfer the property without it, unless we're doing an investment property where they're putting in the MLS listing that C of O and permit requirements are to be done by the buyer, which if you're a first-time buyer, don't do that. Then this would just be the seller's responsibility anyway. Really, they can't transfer the property unless there's a certificate of occupancy. It's very hard to get a temporary certificate of occupancy these days. Municipal assessments, PS on the certificate of occupancy, that will cover smoke alarms, that the fire extinguisher is in the right place, a lot of focus on making sure that handrails are acceptable and not unsafe for children. It'll make sure that all permits on the property have ever been closed. And if construction was done without permits, that will be noted as well. If there's a brand new bathroom in the basement and there's never been permits filed, they're not going to get a certificate of occupancy. They will have to adjust that, rip out the walls to confirm the plumbing with the city. So there are a lot of issues for unpermitted construction. Make sure you get permits. Going to pass on this, never really comes up. Again, this is title insurance, will be explained to you in detail by your attorney. There's a 3-day attorney review, generally 3 days. We do it in 1 day most of the time, where your attorney will go through. They will assign the title company in New Jersey. And the title company will go back and make sure that there are no liens on the property or anybody who has a claim to the property, so that when you buy it, you have clean title and it is all you. If there are tenants in the property, this is where it will be noted. If you're buying a multifamily, this is especially important. If you want it delivered vacant, we're going to put that at the end. And this says possession occupancy will be given to the buyer at closing and that buyer is entitled. However, right now, it is April 27th. We still have a moratorium and have for 14 months, meaning you can't evict anybody. So if tenants don't leave, there's not anything you can do right now. So if there are current tenants, this will be checked. We'll put in as much information as we have, or we'll say per listing agent, but we will get this information for you so you're clear on the tenant, which unit they're in, what rent and what security deposit, and when their lease is up. Lead paint is a completely separate form. All homes built prior to 1978 will have a lead paint form attached. It's not as scary as it seems. Basically, every house built prior to 1978 has lead paint somewhere. In general, the remedy is to paint over it. Lead paint is only dangerous if it is chipping, falls off, and is consumed. So it's especially dangerous for children if that's there. Again, painting over it will seal it in. You can paint it over with many different types of paint. It's not as big a deal as it seems. It is if you have chipping lead paint around the property. It can be hazardous. There's a 30-page or so pamphlet that we will send you. All properties will sign a lead paint disclosure if built before 1978 in order to close your loan. Skip. These things do not come up that much. Cesspools, point of entry treatment systems. If so, I'd be happy to go over with you more, but I don't want to spend too much time on cesspools right now. Your inspection contingency clause, that is after you close attorney review, you technically under contract. That's when inspections begin, which will be your home inspection, which includes here radon testing most of the time. You should always take that. It will include a cursory review of termite potential damage. And then if you are working with our team, we will recommend doing an oil tank sweep as well as putting a camera down the sewer to make sure all is good. Once you have your home inspection back, there may be supplementary inspections that you need to do regarding asbestos, roofs, foundation, and we have recommendations for all of those. Generally, there's a 10-day window where you need to do your inspection. This is after the close of attorney review. 10 days to do your inspection and make inspection repair requests to the seller, and in turn the seller will respond. It's really a secondary negotiation, which sometimes involves taking money off the price or receiving credits or making sure that the seller does repairs. In this hot market, a lot of people are waiving inspections. Don't ever do that. If you're not an experienced investor and know everything about the house, do not waive inspections. It is not safe. We have certain language that makes it more acceptable, and I will explain that at the end where we put it. Radon, there's a certain level. A canister is left in the basement, and you see if you pass under 4.0 is passing. This is about termites. This is your right to inspection, again, where it's going to be 10 days that you have to close it. Again, these are environmental defects that come up during inspections. This is for if you're in a flood zone. We will run all of your properties to confirm whether or not they're in a flood zone. The problem when you're buying with a mortgage and in a flood zone is that you have to have flood insurance as an addition to your insurance to close a loan. And the issue is that we cannot guarantee that your flood insurance will not go up dramatically. We have no way of knowing how high it could go. Flood zone properties are generally a great buy for investors who can buy for cash, because you can buy a property in a flood zone at a discount, but rent it at market value. Megan's Law involves sex offenders in the area, and that is something we cannot disclose in any way. You can do your own research using sites in New Jersey Department of Corrections, etc. These are off-site conditions. These things very rarely apply. Air safety and zoning notice. There are places that have airport safety and zoning. You will just need to be aware of where they are. A bunch of them are listed here for the airports. Bulk sales applies to 3 units and up and 4 units and up. So on your larger multifamilies, there will be need to bulk sales where sales tax is held in escrow for taxes. These are insurance, maintenance, risk of loss. Again, initial and final walkthroughs is important. This is the day of closing or the night before. You will do a final walkthrough to make sure everything is broom swept and in the same condition as when you bought it. If there are issues, you can address them with your agent, who will then get it to the attorneys and they will negotiate something. If there are costs left, money can be held in escrow for something to get fixed, like if somebody does not clean anything up. Adjustments at closing do happen sometimes. You will get a 3-day notice of the closing disclosure, so you have time to review it prior to the closing. Here's your only way where you could really lose your deposit, is if you just refuse to close. You've done everything. There's no reason for you to get out of the contract, but you just fail to close. Other than that, there's usually a negotiation. Consumer information statement means we've given you the CIS, which we should be giving you on our first contact with you of any kind. Gives a kind of overview of all the relationships like these. Seller's agent represents the sellers directly. Buyer's agent, we represent you as a buyer on our own and not the seller. Disclosed dual agent was when both sides work for the same company and or are the same agent, which does happen. We do not work with transaction brokers. Information is supplied by, and this is the listing agent because that's where we got it. So that will be the listing brokerage as a seller's agent. This is really irrelevant to you, but it is where we put the listing agent's information here. Then we put our buyer's information, buyer broker agent information here, and the commission. And then we keep scrolling. Again, you're initialing all these pages as you go, but this hopefully is a good video to just give you a look at how really everything that is available in this contract with no editing. So if something else happens, I'm just going to keep going. My dog could bark. Someone could honk outside. This is just modern culture now. If the buyer or seller is a real estate licensee, it will be noted here. Like when I buy my own properties, I click applicable, put my name, and then I put salesperson. Brokers to receive, gonna go down here, referrals, attorney review, I already told you about, can get out of a contract for almost any reason in attorney review. You cannot assign a contract. This is what is called wholesaling. We're not gonna go over that now. Electronic signatures are now fine, which means you will get these through a program like Dotloop or DocuSign or DigiSign, and you will sign your initials by clicking a button on your phone or on your computer. Here we go, we're getting to the end. I know it's long, but I really hope this helps. This is your addenda. This will click the things that you need. If you have a property to sell, which is impossible to buy with that right now, you would click here. Condo homeowners, we always have a coronavirus addendum now still that you sign. Make sure that you haven't been in contact with anyone that prior to showing. FHA and VA loans, there are two separate forms, an amendatory clause and an addendum. Your lead-based pay disclosure, which we talked about at the top, new construction, sewage, well testing, 3 or more units, which activates the bulk sale. If there's a seller concession, the seller is going to give you closing costs, very impossible in this market as well. Short sale, which is a modified part of a foreclosure. Solar panel, swimming pool, underground fuel tank, that should always be removed by the seller in this market. You should never be responsible for that. It is dangerous. Additional contractual provisions, this is important for us. If you remember back to the inspection part, we have two separate sets of language that we use here. So if you're buying and we want to be competitive, which we always do, we say that buyer will limit inspection repair requests to major structural, environmental, plumbing, foundation, etc. There's a few more words. But the word major is done on purpose. I'm actually an attorney. I don't practice anymore. The word major is something used to tell the seller that you're not going to be a pain. You're only looking for major items. So then the seller feels better about that. But you don't give away all your rights by waiving your inspection. You say, we're still doing them, but we're just looking for major things. We're not going to ask you for money if the door is a little bit ajar. For as-is transactions, we use another form of modified language, which says, so all properties are technically as-is, but some are marketed like as-is, which means the seller's not giving you any concessions. We want to agree to that, but also give ourselves a little bit of space to be safe when you're a newer buyer. So we'll say something to the effect of buyer accepts that the transaction is an as-is transaction. Buyer will do inspections for informational purposes only. However, if something catastrophic were to come up, buyer will address this with the seller first to see if they'd like to negotiate and then take it from there. Meaning, again, we're not trying to be a pain. We are accepting that this is as is, but hey, we're smart. We're still going to do inspections in case we find anything that neither of us knew about. And if we find something like that and it's really big, we're going to ask if you'd like to negotiate it. And remember that once you put them on notice of it, technically that's supposed to go into the listing. So they already are on notice. Say you find an oil tank, you put them on notice, they can't continue to hide it. So it's in their best interest to continue the transaction with you, and you guys can negotiate that out. This is close to the final page. You don't need the witnesses anymore. Buyer, you will sign here. If seller accepts your offer, seller will sign here. You do still initial. Wire frauds at the end. I'm going to sum up wire fraud really quickly for you. Do not ever take email wire fraud notice. If you get information via email, you need to call the place that you're sending your money to and confirm over the phone the exact numbers with the numbers that you have. That's it. that is your 14-page contract of sale. I hope this was helpful. Again, my name is Jonathan Green. Up here in the top, I run this team. It's my team, Streamline Properties on Market. We have about 30 agents in New Jersey, Philadelphia, Houston, and growing everywhere. We are brokered by eXp Realty, which is our brokerage. And this is our real estate, here it is, real estate investment arm, which is called Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. We do 3 separate Zooms a week for investors in Philadelphia, Northern New Jersey, and in West Coast of Florida. We are also on Clubhouse every Wednesday at 7, and we have a Clubhouse live podcast called Block and Lot. But I hope this was helpful. This is the way to understand the real estate contract in New Jersey. If you need us at all, you can find us at Streamlined with a D right here. Sorry, .properties. That's it, www.streamlined.properties, or you can email me at Jonathan, JONATHAN, .green, GREENE, at exprealty.com. Feel free to get in touch with us. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram at Streamline Properties. You can find us all over LinkedIn. So I hope this was helpful. Get in touch with us if you need help. And even if you have your own agent, feel free to look at this and take all the information and ask your own agent the same questions. Have a great day.